Mwalimu, who told us about what he believed in, who told us and introduced me personally to Tanzania when my father went out to start the Somafco school, and later on went back to start the Dakawa Vocational Training Center. His values for peaceful change, social equality, racial harmony, rejection of ethnic discrimination, and still persist. Some of the challenges that he was trying to tackle still persist within the wicked problems that we all try to put our heads to solve. Centuries, it's almost decades after he actually articulated what the issues were. We still try to grapple with those issues. In some cases, I think we've made substantial progress. In others, we've experienced some setbacks. And in furthermore, we've also been introduced to new challenges that are connected to these wicked problems. All of this happening in all of our countries, coming from South Africa, and I can see people from different parts of the continent and the world, on our continent and in the world. However, the lessons learned from that experience confirm the fact that the fundamentals that are needed that need to be addressed to achieve a society free from discrimination were actually embodied in the words of Mwalimu Nyerere in his early life and in his professional life. I never met him personally, obviously, but I came from a country that I have visited on very many occasions, and I've lived it at different times of my life and for different reasons. My first experience was very brief. It was in November 1978. I was on my way to Bulgaria to take up a scholarship in agricultural studies, in agricultural engineering studies. And essentially, we arrived at the airport, went into, I think it was somewhere near Muhimbili Hospital, kind of freshened up. It was really hot. First experience of that humid heat. And then a little bit of an experience in Kariakor Market, had samosas and that amazing ice cream, which I still think, apart from the Cuban ice cream, is the best one that I've had in the world. And experienced Tanzania literally overnight because we departed the following evening. My second experience was on my way back from Bulgaria, where I actually landed, and it was an unfortunate time because Tanzania was grieving the loss of its prime minister just then. And basically we drove through to Morogoro, where I worked for almost 2 years at the Mazimbu project as the assistant horticulturalist. It was an exciting time because I came into Tanzania from Bulgaria, a little bit of arrogance about the fact that I now had a master's degree. I had a deep appreciation for multiculturalism, which Nyerere believed in. And I was on the lookout for my friends who I had met in Bulgaria, Tanzanian women of amazing character, who had taught me a couple of new lingo words, shikamo, the essence of respect when you greet, and also just came with a deep connection that I believe I now realize for the love of rural areas and for a passion for agriculture. And I think additionally, I had a skill that I have since tried to apply to move the peasants that Mwalimu spoke about in the video into being people who can use the natural resources of our lands for agriculture, for food security, for development, and for economic prosperity. I went in to apply those skills, I suppose, again, linked to the vision of a Pan African continent, and was part of the transitioning of the OAU into the AU, and specifically contributed to the development of what is now known as a comprehensive African agricultural development plan, which is a blueprint for agricultural development in the continent. And I supported the creation of what is called the Forum for African Agricultural Research, which is again an effort by Africans to demonstrate their own ability to drive the African agricultural research agenda. So I stand proud, and like I say, I did not meet Mwalimu, but I think I kind of live his values. I've made additional trips to Tanzania, one for learning, a couple of times for learning and development, twice to Arusha, to the Asami Institute, the Eastern Southern African Management Institute for Leadership Development. One was a specially crafted program for South Africans, where besides, whenever we could run away from Asami, we went into Arusha and literally got to know the town, all the little corners of the town, so social integration. And the second was specifically a program targeted at women's leadership. And there I had the honor of meeting, first of all, being led by two amazing women from East Africa, but also I met a lot of women from around the continent who were all at different levels of their leadership journeys. What we did as a collective, almost memorable for us all, was we trained together and we actually managed in the course of the 2 months that we were there to summit to the first level of Mount Kilimanjaro. And of course, we all remain with a principle and promise to ourselves that we're going to go back there one day, still on my agenda. So I enjoyed Arusha. I have since also been as a tourist to Tanzania, and I visited an old friend from Tanzania, Dr. Scholastica Kimaro, and visited Bagamoyo, and was fascinated to retrace the history that we were taught through the English education system about Livingstone, but also to experience one of the biggest trees I had seen, a baobab tree in that area. So really deep connection. My final trip to Tanzania was recent, where I decided to empower 2 of my nieces to travel outside of South Africa, because South Africans tend not to have an appreciation how amazing the continent is, and particularly the world. So we traveled to Zanzibar, their first out of the country experience, their first touch point on the continent. And it was a memorable 14 days that we spent with them, educating them, going through Zanzibar, going through the history of Zanzibar, Tanzania, and just having an appreciation for the peacefulness that you always experience when you go into Tanzania. So what is a legacy? And I try to pinpoint the legacy to 2 things that connect me to Mwalimu with great humility at a personal level. One of them is, I think, as a Pan Africanist, I have managed to contribute to an African agenda for agricultural development. It is still a long journey yet to realize that, but I think that I put a little bit of my effort in. We worked collaboratively with other African scientists, and I think we gave life to a quote that I think Mwalimu also made in Accra once, when he said, "Unity will not make us rich, but it can make it difficult for Africa and the African peoples to be disregarded and humiliated." Today, CADA is a reference point for talking about African agriculture. And I think for me, that is testimony to how one's leadership legacy gets translated into additional generations. The second legacy, and my last point, is that I come away with a deep appreciation for the connectedness that multiculturalism brings. I consider myself a South African-born internationalist. And yet I think I have reached a level of maturity now where I understand that in order to achieve this, one needs to have clear thinking and clear listening, good listener leadership, articulate leaders, and leaders who bring constructive contributions at every level of society into the development agenda and process. And also leaders who can make tough calls in the interest of current and future generations. So they must not be people pleasers. They must actually be quite intentional about what kind of a legacy they want to leave, what they want to change at the time at which they have the power to do it. So thank you very much for including me in this conversation. It was great to listen to Kenneth, and I'm looking forward to listening to the other panelists and input people. And I mean, what can we do? We're more than 3, we're several decades. So it does live on. Congratulations, and thank you.